As you mentioned, I have a background in business and computer science, which is a pretty unique perspective, and it has really, really helped me in my career. At that point, I had to figure out what I was going to do next, and shortly after, I decided to go to university and get an education so that I could really hone my craft. See results in a day. I'm more excited by creating, seeing versus studying something over a long period. I loved research and it taught me so many amazing things. But I think as you go through your career, you're going to learn what's going to motivate you and excite you. And so going back to industry was sort of, yeah, like I think sometimes as an engineer, you just want to build what you think you're going to need or what you think people are going to want. But like it's really helpful if you think about it long before then, if there's like a business case for it. I always had like a side gig going on, and that's how I was learning. Like I told you, I learned how to make iPhone apps. Then I was making websites, and I always had a side gig. And that side gig helped me learn, number one, and number two was always connecting me to other people. We are a lean team, and I'm going to ship code today. After we talk today, I'm still shipping code. It's not only the app idea, it's the how to scale it, how to grow it, how to find your fit in the market today.
Welcome, guys, to Yellow Let's Code podcast, a podcast where we interview software engineers to share their entrepreneurial story. And here we are in the season number 2, and we have Matthew. He's currently working as the VP and product strategy at Lightword, the company behind two different Shopify app, Mechanic and Locksmith. He has a master in biophysics at the university at Western University, a double major in computer and business major at the University of Winnipeg. Awesome.
Yeah.
And we will get more about his story after this intro.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you today. I remember, not to steal your thunder, but I remember that you actually made a video about Mechanic. I think
Yes,
I saw it on YouTube. I think that was like in the early days, and I remember that. So I'm so excited to get to reconnect. And I remember when you were in our Slack community, and it was a really exciting time. Period of big growth for Mechanic, and so it was amazing to have you part of that, and it's amazing to come full circle and reconnect again. So I was
Oh,
really excited when we connected again.
awesome. That's really amazing to hear because during that time, I have been working with the Shopify store. So shout
Yeah,
out to the e-program store. He has been working, like the founder has been working with me on Shopify products for quite some time, and we use Locksmith and we use Mechanic for their Shopify store. So it's like the both of the app that's behind the company, which is
yeah,
really amazing to hear. So thank you so much for mentioning that. So for people that would like to know more about you, can you give the audience an introduction about yourself? So I already gave
yeah,
a quick one in the intro, but can you elaborate more for the guests?
yeah, for sure. So my name is Matt Sadomsky or Matthew Sodomsky. You can call it. I go by both. I live in Winnipeg, Canada, which is in the center of Canada. Lightword, the company that I work with or work for, is a fully remote company. So I'm in Canada. Most of the people are in the US, and then we have one employee in Australia. And so, what else can I tell you? I'm a software engineer by trade. As you mentioned, I have a background in business and computer science, which is a pretty unique perspective, and it has really, really helped me in my career. Everything I'm looking at is through the lens of business and computer science, which it has really helped, and it helps me today. And as you mentioned, I do have a master's in medical biophysics. That is something we could talk about more, but essentially, they were taking software engineering people to work on medical imaging projects. And so I was developing software for MRI machines, and then I came full circle and came back to software engineering. And ended up back in app development, Shopify world, and we can talk more about that. A
Hmm.
little bit about me. I am a father. I have 4.5-year-old, almost 5-year-old twin girls.
That's really
So
amazing.
that is my life's work right there, and it's very, very exciting. And it's like I say, they're almost 5 years old. So this is a new chapter in my life, and so yeah, that's also a big part of my identity. Um,
Awesome.
and yeah,
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction. And we will go through all of the stuff that you mentioned later on during the
yeah,
episode. And the
for
first thing
sure.
that I would like to ask you about is what was your first interaction with computers, especially with web development? Because also you mentioned that you have a academic background in software engineer. So what was
Yeah.
your first interaction with the computer, especially web development?
Okay, so this is yeah, I guess so. I'm 43 years old, and I guess I would have been 15 or 16 years old, maybe younger, but around that age. I remember when we got our first. I remember using computers at school or using computers at like my friend's house, or we didn't even have internet at that time, right? Like people were just starting to get internet in their house. And I remember eventually we got our computer, we got internet, and I I just started to look at how people were building their websites. Things were much simpler, but you could still view the source code, and I started to do that, and that was like really my first introduction. And then, from there, my first jobs were doing like technical support for internet companies, and that was sort of my introduction. I also, when I was 18 years old, I moved to England, to London, England, just with my backpack to go travel. And I got a job working for a company called Fortune City, which was in the US. It was similar to a company called GeoCities, which was like a free web hosting service. And this was like in 1999, like during the dot-com bubble, like the
Yes.
first dot-com bubble. And I worked at like an internet company, and that was pretty crazy. We had like Nerf guns and like toys and stuff, like just like crazy. And then the bubble crashed, and I got laid off from that job like when I was about 19 years old. And at that point, I had to figure out what I was going to do next. And shortly after, I decided to go to university and get an education so that I could really hone my craft.
That's amazing. That's really amazing to hear that you experienced the .com bubble because there's a lot of people that because I heard a lot about it. I was born in 1999, so it's
Yeah,
one year
10 years.
after.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
so never like I heard about it, but I never experienced that. But how dangerous the bubble was during that time and the
Yeah.
effects of it. So that's really amazing to know more about this stuff. And you first mentioned that your first full time job was in this London company. They're like that is like a free hosting. What was the next one? So you did this free hosting company. You go back to study like another major. And what was the next full time job that you work at
So,
after getting your major?
okay. So, just like, so right after that happened, I did stay in London, England, and I went and worked for doing technical support. I was just working with computers, and I worked for a company called Schlumberger, which is like an oil exploration company. I did that, and then I came back to Winnipeg and I started studying. And after I finished studying, I went in directly and did my master's degree. So I was in school for 7 or 8 years. And during that time, I'm doing software development. I'm both in school and on the side. But my first job, I think after that, was working for the government of Canada doing MRI research, making software like pulse sequence software for MRI machines. And it's at that point that I kind of decide that I want to get back into industry. Research was interesting to me, but it was longer term projects, and I was like, I want to see results in a day. I'm more excited by creating, seeing versus studying something over a long period. I love research and it taught me so many amazing things. But I think as you go through your career, you're going to learn what's going to motivate you and excite you. And so going back to industry was sort of what I wanted to do. So I went, I started working for what's called Manitoba eHealth, which was like a digital health initiative in my province where it was still going on today, where they were digitizing, and making electronic records for everything. And my first job there was actually not back into software development because I needed to kind of get back into industry. So my first job there was my job was called application administrator, and I ran the electronic patient record
Okay.
system application and supported that. And then this is, I think, a very interesting thing and something that I suggest. I decided that I wanted to get back and to really do software development full time, but I hadn't been doing it professionally for a little bit. So I had to figure out what I wanted to do. So I booked a week of vacation off of work and I signed up for a boot camp. And it was Big Nerd Ranch. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They do these it was at that time we're doing these intensive boot camps, and I wanted to learn how to make iPhone apps. So,
Okay.
this was, we were developing an Objective C, which now we've moved on to Swift. And I took this course for a week. I went home and I worked for a few months, and while I was doing my job, and I built a coloring book app for iPhone. I published it, and I used that to then almost immediately take on at the same company a software engineering job, and then the process just kind of went from there. So yeah,
Hmm.
that's kind of the genesis of how I ended up back there.
That's really amazing. So always going back to software engineering because I can see that you are really passionate about it. Like just from
Yeah,
the story that you mentioned, and it's really amazing. And for your like academic background, you have a double major in business and computer science, like a degree. Can you
yeah,
tell us more about like this combination because it's unique, and also I think it does complement each other because when you are a software engineer, there is like other part of because you are building product that will be used by customer. And
yeah.
sometimes when you are just like a software engineer and you don't have like an academic, like a business background or business experience, you will be just building software that end up no one will be using. So it's
That's
like a
right.
great combination between the technical and the business side of the products. Can you tell us more about this choice and how this choice make you a better product engineer? Because I think this is like the right term maybe because you are
Yeah,
building products and you have like a software
yeah,
engineer background.
yeah. No, I think that's a great way to put it. Yeah, I was very lucky at the university I was at. I think I don't know why, but I think it's kind of pulled apart now. But at that time, those departments had kind of evolved together, and so there was some combined course offerings, or at least they were sort of in the same area. So there was a natural opportunity to be able to take some of those business courses early on when I was doing my degree, and then I excelled at it and I was interested in it, and so I made a choice that I don't know in our university, we have elective courses we can decide to take outside of, and as I did that, I just did everything that I could in the business side, and then yeah, I just really knew and saw the value at that time. You know, the business class is doing business cases, modeling stuff, even I also understood that like being able to read a financial statement to do all of that would be useful. And so, taking the accounting classes, just, I think I was interested in it and I made a bet that it would be useful. And it has for sure. It helps me in every interaction I have. Just my lens is um, seeing it. Yeah, like I think sometimes as an engineer, you just want to build what you think you're gonna need or what you think people are gonna want. But like, it's really helpful if you think about it long before then, if there's like a business case for it, and also, what I'm practicing even more now is like just building today what you need and not what you think you're going to need in the future. And that business mindset helps you with that. It also, I find that it's much easier to interact with, say, other business minds because they're thinking in that way where, sometimes if you're deep in the code, it's sometimes a little bit harder to convey your ideas. So I think for me, it's really helped my communication as well. It's really helped my communication and really helped my ability to understand, is there a business case for what we're building, and what are the resources that are going to be required, and are we going to be able to get there, and all that. So I highly recommend it. I don't even say that if you're a young software engineer, I'm not even saying go get a double major in business. If you want to, please do. If you don't, take a few business courses at least. Get versed in it, because even just a few courses can go a long way.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I agree with you because I study like in my high school I study economics, and I study a bachelor degree in marketing and economics. So while doing this bachelor degree, I study software engineer in like my free time. So I'm a self-taught software engineer.
Amazing.
It really makes sense because we are not doing code for the sake of the code. We are doing code to like make money directly or indirectly. So either like through making software for other business.
No, I totally agree with you. There are times in your life where we can do passion projects and stuff that we're, but yeah, at the end of the day, I think a lot of us, everyone's got to live. And so you gotta, that business sense can help you get there.
Yeah, that's really good point to mention. And sometimes because we are really passionate about what we are doing, we neglect this part of the business, and we would like to go deep in our code, refactoring, make it clean. But the business person will see this like it can be like a waste of time. Maybe it's not. Yeah. This is like just the thing that you need to think about it also, like from a business perspective, because you need to get paid and the company need to make money. So this is the formula.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the way the world works sometimes is that's just the reality of the world we live in.
That's really amazing. So talking about your career, the recent job before the Lightword one, it's you have been a CTO at Delta 9 Cannabis. Can you give us more insight about this role?
It's an amazing experience for me. And here's another place I'll give some career advice. I was working as a senior software engineer for this Manitoba eHealth, which is the digital health initiative in my province. And I had a side business making websites. I always had like a side gig going on, and that's how I was learning. Like I told you, I learned how to make iPhone apps. Then I was making websites, and I always had a side gig. And that side gig helped me learn, number one, and number two was always connecting me to other people. So I highly recommend, I'm at, I think, the first point in my life where I don't kind of have a side gig, and that's because I've got a young family and I'm fulfilled by my job and all of these things. But up until now, I always had a side gig. So I highly recommend it. And I met some people who were involved in Delta 9 Cannabis. This was I think I originally connected with them in probably 2015, 2016. And cannabis was becoming legal in Canada federally, which is different in the US. They're doing it state by state, but in Canada, it was a one fell swoop, the entire country. And this company was before cannabis was legal across the country, there was a medical program where you could get a prescription from a doctor, you could get it. And these guys had a big grow facility in Manitoba, which is the province where so I'm in Winnipeg, Manitoba. They had a big grow facility there. I knew about them. They were like first movers in this area in where I live. And then when cannabis was becoming legal, they were positioned to kind of go like, rocket ship. And so I had made a website for their clinic, and then they were, the opportunity just came up. And I was working at this government job, and it was a very good job. And I was like, what am I going to do? And as always, I spoke to my wife and said, there's this opportunity. It's, I'm moving from this job into chief technology officer, which was, that position was, in some companies, you could also call that a CIO, a chief information officer. I was technical, but also playing that CIO role. And basically going to a company that ended up with $60 million in funding because it went public on the stock market. And I walked in there and there was almost no tech set up. There was the basics, but not at the scale we were going. So I'm talking about all the business information systems. I'm calling out the networking. I'm talking the security. I'm talking about going from having 0 retail stores to eventually, when I left, having 20, and now they have 40. So I was responsible for going from 0 to 1 on all of that. Obviously, I built a team to do it. It was incredibly exciting. It was super fun, very interesting industry, obviously. And it was an exciting time in Canada. Like, I remember going from the day it wasn't legal to the day it was legal until so one of my first decisions when I got there was, what was I going to use for e-commerce, and what was I going to use for point of sale, and what was I going to use for delivery and all of that. And these guys had already had a few discussions with Shopify. But I was going in there, and luckily I was like at the point where I could still make my own decision there when I took over. And so I assessed a bunch of options, and I decided to go with Shopify. And the reason why I decided to go with Shopify is because at that time and still to this day, but I understood that like that omni-channel, or that one source of truth for data without having all these other integrations, that was to me pretty much the most important thing. I did not want to deal with integrations. I did not want to deal with multiple systems, especially when we're a very young company growing super fast. And so I really valued that. And then something that you might not know, which is pretty interesting, is that so Shopify at that time they made a Canadian version of Shopify. It was Shopify hosted just in Canada, and it looked the same. And it was because the people felt at that time that the data needed to be stored in Canada from like a privacy policy sort of a thing. It turns out that in the end that requirement wasn't a big requirement. But my first experience with Shopify was with this, they called it the Canadian Cloud, and it was like had a bunch of limitations. And so eventually they sunset that, because that's not what Shopify does. Shopify does not do like bespoke solutions like that. But yeah, it was very, very interesting. So that job was exciting. And I learned so much. It was a lot of fun. And it also introduced me further to Shopify and got me working. And it's also where I met Mechanic and Isaac,
Yes.
who is the founder of Mechanic and Lightword. And so I think what you're seeing probably in my story is it's like each jump leads to the next thing, leads to the next thing, and deciding when to jump from the government, the CTO role at Delta 9 Cannabis, to when to jump from that role. My twins were just born at this time, and I decided to leave that job and jump to go
To
do what
Lightward.
I'm doing now, that is those decisions are going to be, they're not always obvious what you should do. If you're lucky and if you're good and lucky and they'll turn out, and that's where the real growth happens. Because if you don't take those risks, I'm not saying take risks just for the sake of it, but when you take calculated risks, and take that opportunity, and also when you take a job, like when I moved I had never been a CTO from being a senior software engineer. Um, Having the confidence that you can do that and to go in there and do it, that's also important. Like, you got to give yourself that you have to bet on yourself so that you can grow, or else
Yeah,
you're not
exactly.
going to have those opportunities.
Exactly. That's really, really good point to mention of taking risk. And also you mentioned a good thing about taking risk, which is calculating the benefit of taking the risk.
Yes,
It's like the
yes,
return on investment. So you are investing in a company, just calculate how much money you will be making back from this company. This is
yeah,
like something similar to taking risk. So just do your calculation and
yeah.
hopefully it will be work out.
That's right. And then I guess what I'll say is one thing that I always do, like for instance, maybe not taking the full bet, working with someone a little bit first and learning, is it compatible? Like, if you have those options, those are always great. And then the other thing is always keeping your skills up sharp. I'm never falling behind on technology. I'm always still like coding, just so that you always want to keep yourself fresh, so that you're ready for whatever comes.
Yeah, that's really amazing point to mention, and thank you for mentioning that. And so there is a good switch from the previous job, CTO as Cannabis. So the last thing that you did is choosing Shopify, and after that you become VP and product strategy at Lightword, the company behind two popular Shopify app, which is Locksmith. And Locksmith was launched in 2014. I think it's one of the earliest Shopify apps.
Yeah,
So, and the other
first
one is
100
Lock.
apps.
Yes, so it's like one of it's like one of the OG of like the company is one of the OG of the Shopify app space, especially. And Mechanic it's launched 2018. So from
Yep.
what I see, so can you give us more insight about this transition and going from a technical role, which is the CTO, and going to a VP product and strategy at Lightward? So how the switch happened? How did you get connected with the CEO? And how this experience from going from a technical role to, I would say, more business role?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was, like I said, I was working at Delta 9. I had selected Shopify. We were rolling that out. And we were on this Canada Cloud version of Shopify. There was limitations, and so I found Mechanic, and Mechanic unlocked my ability to extend the functionality of Shopify. It really allowed me to do all of the things I needed to do at that time, and so I learned how to develop in it myself, but like, I wanted to pay someone to do the development for me, because I needed to focus on the million other things that wasn't really what my role was at Delta 9, was to like be actually developing these automations or integrations. And so I started to talk with Isaac through app support. Isaac is the founder of Lightword. And I was like, hey, can I just pay you? Just do like, let me just pay you to build these things for me. And he's like, no, I can't. He's like, I'm like, come on, man. He's like, I can't. I'm just like, I'm growing this thing. I can't. I need to just focus. This is what I'm focusing on. I have no interest in building up. I can't take, even if I were to build something for you, I can't take care of your code forever. It's just not our model. And so he, it was still the early days of Mechanic, and he was gracious enough to like communicate with me and deal with my requests. And I learned enough and I got really excited about it. Me and Isaac became friends, and we still are very, like, our friendship is a very important thing to me, and it's been such a nice part of the whole mechanic and Lightword experience. And then I met someone named Brad in the mechanic community, and Brad is a mechanic expert, freelancer. Like, we have a partner directory now where we put people who can be hired to make mechanic tasks, and he ended up building. Then he could take my ideas and he could just build them fast. And this is kind of how it happened. The mechanic, we have a Slack community, which anybody listening who's interested in learning about mechanic, I highly recommend joining. It's one of the most lovely places on the internet, in my opinion. Everyone's willing to help each other. There's no ego, and it's a very, very nice place. And so I hung out there, learned a lot, and me and Isaac kept on being friends. And then I was like, okay, I want to get into Shopify development. I'm interested in this. And so I was like pitching app ideas to Isaac. I'm like, hey, do you want to build this together? Do you want to do this together? And he's like, no, I got what I'm doing. And he would like connect me with other people, like, to speak to about, like, to tell my ideas to see if like they would be interested, which was really kind. And then at some point, I think Isaac was like, hey, if you want to work on something like this, would you ever want to work on mechanic? And I was genuinely excited by that. I saw the value of mechanic. I love the product, and I wanted to work in the space. And so I started doing, a little side work with, there's that side hustle again. I started doing some side work with Lightword. And that's what happened. Did that for like 3-4 months. And we were always talking about, once we get to a certain amount of revenue, I'll come work full time. But after about 4 months, Isaac, he's incredibly brilliant, and he just said to me, like, let the opportunity, like, it feels like the time is right now, and we don't know what that's going to feel like in 6 months. So, like, I think we just got to do it. If you're, I'm willing to just pay you to come do this full time if you'll accept it. And again, I have to talk to my wife. Our kids are like 1 year old at this point. I think at this point, it's in the middle of the pandemic. And yeah, I decide, gonna do it. Me and my wife decide together we're gonna do it. And so leave my position, which was a really hard decision because the Delta 9 guys and people are my good friends as well at that point. But I gave them like 6 weeks or 2 months notice, and I hired my replacement. I trained them up. I conducted all those interviews, and I left them in a good place. So I felt good about that. And then I went full time, working, at Lightword, and that, I wear the hat of, product strategy. I think in large part because of my business background, but I will say, we are a lean team, and I'm going to ship code today. After we talk today, I'm still shipping code. Awesome. And not because I have to, because I love it. That's like, I can't paint or draw. That's what software engineering is for me. It's like creativity and, so yes, I'm going to ship code. I'm looking at the timer now. Once we're done, I have a big feature I'm shipping out. So for me, I think I told you before the camera's on that this is the job I want to do forever. The values of the company align with my values so strongly. It's an amazing place to be. It's exciting. And so I think my business mind is always thinking about, how can we do this forever? And that's modeling that, like, how are we going to build that product? How are we going to build a business in which that it's sustainable, that we can, especially in an environment like Shopify where the platform is changing. And so you build something 10 years ago, or 5 years ago or 4 years ago, there's no guarantee that that's going to be the thing forever. And that's why
Yes.
you've got to build a product that can change, is one thing. You'll notice locksmith and mechanic are kind of like, they can mold, instead of fitting a mold, they can change to fit as that mold changes over time. But also you have to be like, I'm always just aware of what is happening. Like I'm very, very on top of the ecosystem, the platform, to build that. So to answer your question, that's how it all happened, and that's why I sort of run the product and strategy side of things. But I'm still an engineer at heart as well, because that's where the joy is. Some of the joys. I love the other stuff, don't get me wrong, but the real excitement, as you probably know as an engineer, is getting your hands dirty. And I'll also say, it's just, for me, it's important to always be learning, like always
Yes.
be learning. And so if I don't code for a really long time, it becomes hard to be productive at it. So I think it's always important, if you're interested in, continuing that, even for yourself, like as a passion, like it's just good to always continue in the technical side, if you love it as much as I think probably we do.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I agree with you. The last point that you mentioned, I think if you are passionate, I don't think you will be not coding for a long time. Even if you
Yeah,
have like a, even if your full time is not technical, maybe on
yeah,
the weekend you will be hacking
yeah,
some
of course.
project there, so it will be always fun for you to do. It's like it's your passion, so
Yeah,
it's the stuff that make you a better person, like the enjoyment and the happiness that you will get from seeing the stuff that you build working from your hand, just the syntax and stuff. It's really amazing to see that in action. It's really amazing. It's really fulfilling stuff to
yeah,
have as a passion.
absolutely.
And you mentioned that the current job is fulfilling your need. Can you give us what is like working at Lightword, and what make this company fulfill your need in terms of like a value and stuff?
Okay, so the company is owned. It's a private company owned by Isaac and his husband Abe. They are uh, amazing people, incredibly generous, and they lead with the okay. Well, first of all, the most important rule of the company is, you take care of your own health first. They call it recursive health. So first, if we're healthy, if our team's healthy, then our product will be happy, then the world will be healthy. Sorry. And so if it, for instance, if it is between me staying and working late or going to the gym, they would say go to the gym. Because if I'm healthy and the bet is that in the long term, our business will be healthier. And I have seen that play out in this company. It's not something I've ever seen. I've seen like health prioritized in different ways, but this is the core value of the company, and so that's really important. As a father of with young kids, the work-life balance is very important to me. But I'll tell you that that makes me more motivated to see us succeed as a company. So it is kind of this, it kind of does come full circle. So there's that. Um, I also just think Isaac he's the most brilliant software engineer I've ever worked with. I just love working with him. I love learning from him. He is a very interesting person, like in terms of, I'd say he's a modern day philosopher. So just like being in his space and learning from him is a unique. Uh, I just value that so much. And so, yeah, and in my opinion, we have two of the best apps on the App Store, and we're making lots of money doing it. So, like just even on the business service of that, like what's not to love, you know?
Yeah, makes sense.
So on a personal level, it is, yeah, it's, you know, they're also very generous. Like we go for team retreats, we meet up, we get to have time together, things that might not be prioritized by other companies, just have a home at this place. And it's just a people first kind of a place. And so I it has taken me probably, you know, 4 years to really understand. It was hard to explain what was so different about this place. But it just is, it's like a utopia in business. And I think I hope that more people get to experience something like this because it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's really amazing, and I'm really happy that to see how you are talking about the company. It's really amazing to see how you are fulfilled with this, like working at this company, and really happy for you. And you mentioned great stuff,
Thank you.
and one of the things that I would like to mention. So we cover your story and how it went
Yeah.
full circle. And one of the questions that I have based on the recent stuff that you mentioned, what do you think make a great Shopify app? So Locksmith and Mechanic is one of the best Shopify app in the App Store. And what do you think from your technical and business perspective, what make a great Shopify app?
That is a very good question. That starting today is a little bit different than starting, you know, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, just because the number of apps out there are so many. But you see like amazing apps being built all the time. So to me, like I said, I think like Shopify apps need to be able to change over time. Yeah, apps that are able to evolve over time are important. So I'm, you know, that like super easy. I don't know if you've seen that right now. They're sort of a function generator. To me, an idea like that's amazing because that's going to evolve and change over time. It's not, hey, I put a badge on a product or something like that. So that I think also more than anything, you can build a great idea, but you have to go to market properly. You have to have adoption. You have to have the right fit. All of these things. So I also just think more just like strategy wise, staying lean, building, testing, and like getting things out there, seeing if you're getting traction. Like don't like trying to hit some, to use baseball, try and hit some singles, don't try and hit a home run right out the gate. And like scale sustainably. You know, I told you earlier that like Isaac was like, no, I'm not going to build you custom things. We don't do that. To this day, we do not do that. We don't do that. We have experts. We've sort of followed that Shopify model where we have like an ecosystem, and we have people making significant money on the periphery around Mechanic. We don't take anything from that. We just send our leads to them, and that the benefit to us is there's this healthy ecosystem around Mechanic. But what that is what I'm talking about there is just sustainable growth. So it's not only the app idea, it's the how to scale it, how to grow it, how to find your fit in the market today. You know, if I had to give any like hard advice, I would say watch the Shopify roadmap, watch what new features are coming out, and you know, so if there's theme app extensions, if there's admin extensions, if there's functions, adopt these new technologies, because you could be first mover or early movers in these new areas, and the worst case scenario is you fail, but you've learned all these skills, and then
Yes,
you can use those skills to like work with another app. One thing I'm thinking about these days is even if there's old niches that like people, you know, there's big players in, there might be new opportunities to relook at those in the lens of all the new technology that's available versus how these apps were built a long time ago. So I will say it's more competitive out there just because of the numbers, but yeah, I don't know. That sort of goes between, but like what is a great Shopify app, but also how I think what is a great Shopify app today, or what is a great Shopify app business today, I think is kind of,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know if
makes
that
sense.
answers
Yeah,
your, okay.
it does answer your question and does cover a lot of ground for
Yeah.
what make a good Shopify app. It's not just the idea, it's the execution, it's how you would like to find product market fit, how you would like
Yeah.
to scale the business. It's all of the stuff that will make a great Shopify app from what you mentioned, which is really great thing to mention, and thank you for mentioning that. So this next question would be about the lesson that you learned during your experience working at Lightword and the stuff that you would like to share with us. And also, after that, we will have another question about tips and the resources for
Sure.
the audience to share about.
Yes, absolutely. And feel free to ask any. You had a list of questions that we kind of, all of those are fair games. Okay, so lessons learned. I think my most recent lesson learned is going back to like a is yeah an old saying, which is kind of like you aren't gonna need it or you ain't gonna need it, which is basically a way of saying build for what you need today, not what you think you're going to need. And sometimes with a business mind, it's easy to think about building for what you think is going to fit the market or like trying to predict. But like in software engineering, like it just ship, get what you get, build what is needed today and ship instead of trying to refine until it's absolutely perfect. You might have, it needs to be good and stable and great, but it doesn't have to have every single feature, because who knows if you're going to need every single feature. Get it out there, let the people use it, get some feedback, see. You might spend a year working on something and it turns out no one used it, so
Yes.
like getting better at fit, obviously trying to predict that going forward is great, but also from the engineering side is like we can build fast now, especially with AI. I just recommend like really leaning into that. That's a big lesson learned, and something that, like I said, I'm going to ship something later today, and I decided to put a bow on it and say, it's done for now. I could have kept going for another month, but you know
Yes.
what? This is the time. Let's get it out there. Let's see what happens, and then can always iterate. So that's a big one. I think another one is what I've learned working from Lightword specifically is like sustainable growth. Sometimes in business, or people want to raise as much money as possible, or want to grow as fast as possible, or hire as many people as possible. Or the thing is like depends what you want. If you want to enjoy your job, like maybe just grow at the rate that is sustainable for your business, but also that you're building the job you want to do. And so we're very careful about how we decide to grow, and what we say yes to, and what we say no to. And I think that's a skill, and it's been a beautiful thing that I've been able to learn here, because it's led to me being able to evolve this role into the role I want to be doing. What's the point of making tons and tons of money if you hate your job?
Yes.
That's not valuable in my mind, because at the
Gotcha.
end of the day, you're just once you have what you need, you're just going to spend it. So you might as well just like take both into account anyways.
Yes.
So I think those are a few lessons learned.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Yeah, taking the best of the both world, having a great
Yeah.
job and good money, it's the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I miss from, like, I would like to ask you from the last thing that you mentioned is how did you stay updated with the Shopify latest stuff? So Shopify every 6 months have a Shopify edition where they
Yeah.
are shipping like a over 100 update. So
Oh my
how did
God.
you are keeping up with them? So it's a lot of feature, a lot of
Yeah.
sometimes there is a bunch of new feature. So how
Yeah.
did you keep updated with all of this stuff in top of your full-time job?
Okay. So there's two ways to look at it. How do I keep up with it in terms of how do I hold it in my head or know what's happening? And then how do we keep our app up is another thing. I stay up to date by like in the partners area in Shopify, there's like notifications that come up when there's big announcements. I'm always checking that out. I'm in the partner Slack. I'm always looking at the announcements there. I'm always reading like the changelog stuff. I'm fortunate in the fact that in the mechanic community, people are asking lots of questions when new stuff is coming up. So, and then I'm always watching like the edition stuff. So I'm working hard to stay on top of it. In terms of staying up to date with that, like with our apps, I mean, yes, things are moving at a much faster cadence than they ever were historically, and that is challenging for sure. So one of the things we're dealing right now is with the REST deprecation, which our app is built in GraphQL, like we were early adopters, but we have a lot of users who have written code mechanic tasks using the REST APIs. And so to start with, the product and variant endpoints are ending starting February 1st. So I mean, after I ship this code, that's like going to be where my attention is for the next couple months is like so right now we have like our mechanic task library. We're rewriting having those all rewritten to be only REST, which can now serve as examples for people to convert their own tasks. So anything that we will take care of, anything that we wrote that people are using, like our task library, but custom code that they wrote, they will have to modify themselves. So some of it is things are changing so fast, is trying to build mechanic in such a way that so now that we're losing some of those endpoints, we're thinking about how do we architect mechanic in such a way that we can be immune to these changes, like if these changes happens. And some of that means like we have what are called REST liquid objects in mechanic. And at this point, those aren't going to be a thing in the future because those require sort of like a mapping to GraphQL, and that's just not something we can sustainably kind of take care of. So, so like evolving the app in such a way that, so I think that is how we're dealing with it, is evolving the app that we can respond. The other thing is like, I take every opportunity to meet with Shopify product managers, and we're so lucky we get to speak with these people to learn their insights, to also give feedback, and so all of that. I think yes, I work to stay on top of it and then figure out how to deal with it. But it is, at the rate of change, it's challenging. It is challenging, but it's also exciting, and you see it in the product. Shopify's product is improving, so it is a good thing.
Yeah, that's true. So to give people perspective, I wouldn't say left, but I don't use Shopify for about 2 years because of my full-time stuff. And after I'm going back because I have to learn the Shopify payment extension API, so I have to learn all of this stuff. And I was in a hurry to be able to learn all of this stuff because there's a lot of things changed when I left Shopify development, so I have to keep up with them. And thankfully, I'm currently in a good pace of learning stuff, which is really amazing.
It can be overwhelming, that's for sure. And I think they're shipping so fast right now, which is exciting, but it is, it's a challenge for app developers for sure. Also learning new skills, also deprecations changing, but it's it's a privilege to get to work in the Shopify ecosystem. It's a privilege to get to grow our business alongside theirs. So this is part of the journey. When you hit yourself to a rocket ship, it's going to go real fast.
Yes, exactly. I always consider myself like a Shopify fanboy because I like Shopify and how this evolve. And I think Shopify, it's one of the companies, especially in the e-commerce CMS space, where they still have this a startup mindset of shipping stuff and shipping fast, really fast. So I don't see any competitor of Shopify that are shipping as fast as Shopify, especially in the
No,
e-commerce space. So
no.
it's really a privilege for us to be working with Shopify, especially for this type of uh, opportunity that we will get to learn. And also with like a new stuff, there's other opportunity for Shopify app developer to build on top of that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Awesome. So the last question will be about tips and resources that you would like to share with the audience. So it can be either like a podcast, books, online resources, you name it. So you can just go and share anything that you would like to share with the audience.
Um, I think like first of all, just get involved with the communities, meet as many people as you can. If you've got, local meetups or startup communities, I'm not doing that as much these days, but that was a big part of my experience. I also recommend, like I said, always having a side hustle, always have a side project or something like that for learning, but also meeting people. And also, it's always good to have another revenue source. And then, like with AI now, I know it's a real buzzword, but for me, it's unlocked a new level for me in terms of software engineering. Um, it, I can't just say, "Hey, build me something," but if you are technical enough to know what you want to do, and you're technical enough to know when AI is hallucinating or when they're doing something wrong or when they don't have the domain knowledge of what you're trying to work on, and you can give it that through either prompt stuffing or through, um, adding knowledge to like an AI project. Like, I just think there's so much opportunity there that like ChatGPT O1 preview is incredible. Also, Claude Sonnet 3.5, incredible. So I don't know. I think for a young developer, or a young engineer, I think like focus on the basics because if you try and learn by doing with AI, I don't think it's going to go well. Or it might not go well, but you're not going to get those core basics down. But once you have the fundamentals, I just think there's so much value there. The yeah, so I don't like. I think initially my reaction to AI was like, "This is buzz," but now I call I'm augmented by AI. It's a part of my process, and I recommend looking at that space, and always happy to talk more about that. I find it so fascinating. We're working on some AI stuff at Lightword now, and just super fun. Yeah, that kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, just get in and start doing something. Like, work on a Shopify project, try and build an app. Just don't wait, just start. And don't even, who cares if it makes you money initially? Just that's the best way to learn is get your hands dirty. Um, I think the first websites I made for people were for free, or I was trading them stuff. I was like, I'll build a website, and my buddy was like, I'll let you do yoga at my yoga studio for free, and like, just trade, and then that's how it happens. Don't wait until, don't wait, just get started. That's
Yes,
I
yeah,
think
that's
my
true.
advice.
At the worst case, you will learn something. So this is
Yeah,
the good thing. So in case of the app doesn't work, you learn about Shopify. Maybe you can leverage this skill to like do freelance gig. Who knows?
yeah,
Or maybe it will leverage this skill to build the second one, which might be a success. So who knows?
exactly, exactly.
Just keep trying.
That's right.
So awesome, Matthew. So we come to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for attending this episode and giving us time to share your story. It's been a pleasure hosting you for today's episode. And you have the mic so you can see the last word so we can end the episode.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I think I told you leading up to this that this isn't something I normally do, just in terms of I don't find myself on a podcast. But I do thank you for the opportunity. It's been a fun experience for me. It's been great to reconnect with you. I'm really excited to see what you do in your career.
Thank you.
You've got. I'm excited for you. I know there's going to be great things. And yeah, you're doing. This is a very. This podcast is fun. I've watched it, and so I'm excited for you, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen next.
Awesome. Thank you so much.